this is Ms. Bazone, and today we're going to be talking about two-step equations. Hopefully before you've watched this, you've either already learned it or you watched my video on one-step equations. Alright, so first I want to do a review of one-step because you can't jump in to two-step unless you know it. So I'd like you to pause the video and do these 4 problems. So for number 1, remember our focus is what is happening between x and the other number on the same side of the equal sign. So in this case, we have x plus 9. What's between x and 9? A plus. So since we're adding, the inverse or opposite of adding is subtracting. So I'm going to minus 9. But since it's an equation, both sides must be equal. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I'm subtracting 9 on both sides. Now we're allowed to do that because it's both sides. Plus 9 minus 9 cancels to 0. So those go to 0. We just draw a line through them. I'm going to bring down my x equals 13 minus 9 is 4. Done. Number 2. X minus 7 equals negative 3. We are subtracting. The opposite of subtracting is adding. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. Again, minus 7 plus 7 cancels to 0. Draw a line through it. X equals negative 3 plus 7 is 4. Number 3. When you see a number and a variable touching like that, that means multiplication. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So divide both sides by that negative 3. Now this time, those don't cancel to 0. What is negative 3 divided by negative 3? It's 1. So those cancel out to 1. Now you don't have to write the 1, but you can if you want. 36 divided by negative 3 is negative 12. So again, you can put that there, but when we write an x, it's understood there's an invisible 1 there. Think about it this way. I have a pen, I have 1 pen. When I say I have a pen, it's understood I have 1. Okay. Alright, last one. What is x and the 5 doing? They're on the same side. That line means dividing. The opposite of dividing is multiplication. So we multiply both sides by 5. You can think of this 5 as 5 over 1. Those 5's cancel out. 5 times 6 is 30. You can leave it like this. I usually leave it like that. I'm too lazy to rewrite it. Some people don't like it like that, and they would rather write it with the x on the left. It doesn't matter. It's really up to you and your teacher and what makes the most sense for you. Alright, so now let's jump into solving two-step equations. So notice there's 2 things that's going on here. We have x multiplying that 7, and we have x and the subtracting 3. So think of solving an equation like the opposite of order of operations. When we do order of operations, we always multiply and divide first. So to solve, we're going to do the opposite of that. We're going to add and subtract first. Always add and subtract before you multiply and divide when solving an equation. So the first thing we want to do is that 3 has to get out of there. Because 7 and x are kind of like stuck together. So they're chilling, they're happy together right now, and they're like, 3, get away, we don't want you here. So 3 is going to go hang out with his friend 18. So whatever we do to one side of the equal sign, we do the other. So the opposite of minus is plus. So I added 3 on both sides. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. I'm going to bring down my 7x equals 21. Now I have 7x equals 21. What's happening between 7 and x? They're multiplying. The inverse of multiplying is dividing. Divide by 7. 7 divided by 7 cancels to 1, and x equals 3. If we tried divide first, we would get craziness, decimals, We don't want that to happen. So always add and subtract first. And notice I drew that dotted line. Some students have trouble because there's so many numbers and letters everywhere. So if it helps, draw a dotted line through the equal, where the equal sign is, because we're focused on the side that has X on it. So on the side that has X, what two numbers are over there? We have the 8 and we have the 2. Who gets moved first? 2x is like, think of it's one term. So we're going to move everything away other than that term. So we have to get rid of that 8. Is that 8 adding or subtracting? It's a positive 8. The inverse of a positive is a negative. So we're going to subtract 8 on both sides. 8 minus 8 cancels to 0. I'm going to bring down my term, my 2x. Negative 12 minus 8 is negative 20. It's really important for you to know your integer rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing here. Last step, we want to get x by itself. It's got that 2 in front. These are multiplying. Inverse of multiplying is dividing. Divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I'm just going to write x equals negative 10. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Don't forget your negative. Negatives are important. Having $1 million and owing someone $1 million are two very different things. Alright. If you're comfortable, you're good with those fractions, pause the video, try it on your own. Just like before, I'm going to draw my dotted line through where my equal sign is, just to keep the two sides separate. Helps me. X and the 3 are one term, so they have to stick together until they're alone. Okay? They're BFFs. These are like their acquaintances. The acquaintances go home from the party before your BFF goes home from the party. So those are hanging. The 11, on the other hand, he's tired, he's not friends, he wants to go home and go to bed. So we're going to move that 11 to the other side. Opposite of subtracting is adding. X over 3 equals 15. Now what is x and 3 doing? There's a line there, they're dividing. The inverse of dividing is multiplying. It's a little more work to get your BFF to leave. You like each other too much. 3's cancel. X equals 15 times 3 is 45. If it helps, if you don't like that dot, you can do parentheses, whatever to help you realize that that's multiplication. I do the dotted line to try to avoid the fact that that looks like not equals. If you want to rewrite it down here, that's fine. I like the line, I think it's helpful. Okay, next one. Again, I'm going to draw my dotted line. Alright, so we have negative x over 2 plus 7, and then negative 10. So who moves first? Well, x and 2 are one term, so they stick together the longest, so that 7 has to move. So minus 7 on both sides. That's your great Aunt Fern leaving the party. 7 minus 7 cancels to 0. Negative x over 2 equals negative 10 minus 7 is negative 17. Now your brother's still at your house. He has to go home to his house. Or if you're a teenager, he's going to go to his room. You guys are hanging out in your room. You got to kick him out so you can go to sleep. Opposite of dividing is multiplying. But be careful here. Because what's in front of that x? So even though the negative's up top, you still need to get rid of it. We don't want x to be negative. We want it to be positive. So we're going to make that 2 negative. Because a negative times a negative, those two become positives. Okay. So those cancel. X equals negative 2 times negative 17 is positive 34. Okay. And that's solving two-step with fractions. All right, pause the video, try it on your own. All right, so these are a little harder specifically because of that negative in front of the 4. So the process is the same. I'm going to draw my dotted line. The 4 and the x are attached, so they stay together longer. The 13 has to move first. Now, I see a lot of students, it's really, really common for them to put 13 and they're going to add 13 because they see this minus. But where is that minus? It's attached to the 4. It's not attached to the 13. Signs are in front. So if you tried to do this, what's 13 and 13? 26, not 0. We need that to cancel to 0. So I need to make it minus 13. Minus 13. Now 13 minus 13 cancels to 0. Bring down. Now again, I see this a lot. Is that really a 4? No, that subtraction is really a negative for the 4. So make sure you bring down that negative in front of the 4. 9 minus 13 is negative 4. Now the 4x, the negative 4x, we can get rid of that negative 4. These are multiplying. The inverse of multiplying is dividing. I said it before, I'll say it again. Don't lose your negative. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And then negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. And we're done. Alright, next one. Let's draw my dotted line. Find that term that's together. I have my 2/3 x, which is attached. That 2 over 3 is attached to x, so it's together. So that means I need to move the other number that's on that side, the 6. Is that 6 positive or negative? It's negative. The inverse of subtracting or a negative is a positive. So we're going to add 6. Negative 6 plus 6. Don't lose your negative. Negative 2/3 x equals 14 plus 6 is 20. Now, if you remember, what did we talk about when you have a coefficient that's a fraction? When you have a fraction coefficient, you multiply by your reciprocal. There's a few ways to do that. That's probably the fastest and the easiest. So to make a fraction go away, you multiply by the flipped version of the fraction. And again, it's negative, so this has to be negative also. Two negatives make a positive. If you want to multiply all that out, that helps. You have negative 2 times negative 3 is 6 over 6x. Well, 6 over 6 is just 1. So if that helps, do it. No big deal. Here, think of it as 20 over 1. Multiply the top, negative 60 over 2 is negative 30. And that's our answer. We may have one more slide, I don't remember, because I'm not bad of a teacher. Oh, that was it. Hope that helped. That's your two-step equations. Next video will be solving equations where there's a bunch of x's on one side of the equation. Have a great day.